Urban parks in particular provide excellent opportunities to demonstrate sustainable operations to the public. And our first speaker, Benjamin Grant, will explain how urban parks are integral components of resilient and sustainable cities and are at the forefront of climate change response. Benjamin is a city planner, urban designer, curator, and teacher in the San Francisco Bay Area. Since 2009, he's led the Ocean Beach Master Plan for the San Francisco Planning and Urban Research, or SPUR. The plan is an award-winning climate adaptation strategy for San Francisco's open coast. He currently leads SPUR's policy research on physical planning and urban design. He's developed exhibitions on a range of urban issues and has contributed to an array of planning and urban design projects in the Bay Area and beyond. So, ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Benjamin Grant.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that great introduction, and thanks for having me here. This is really exciting and close to my heart, and as you'll see, close to the work that I've been doing, but coming at it from sort of a different world. And I think what's sort of really interesting about this work, especially in an urban setting, is how these different worlds, different disciplines, different jurisdictions come together to solve really pressing challenges. So I'm going to start with just a little bit about who SPUR is, who I am, how we think. I'm going to move on to some gross generalizations about cities that I hope will at least be food for thought. And then I'm going to dive a little bit deeper into the Ocean Beach Master Plan project as one example of the way in which urban parks can be at the forefront of climate adaptation. And how we can bring some of the tools of, in particular, city planning and design to the arena of national parks and conservation. So, SPUR, how many of you are familiar with SPUR, if any? Oh, quite a few of you, that's wonderful. So I won't belabor the point. SPUR is a nonprofit member-supported research and advocacy organization. We support good planning and good government through research, education, and advocacy. We believe that cities present some of the critical solutions to some of our most challenging problems. And I'll talk a little bit more about the nature of that. But in terms of our program, what we do original policy research on a wide variety of issues that touch city planning, housing, conservation, climate change, transportation, et cetera, throughout the region. And then we advocate for policy changes at all levels, but primarily at the local and regional level, based on that research. We publish a monthly magazine, we do a series of exhibitions at our urban center in San Francisco and our presence in San Jose and Oakland as well. Starting about 5 years ago, SPUR started to implement a 3-city strategy. We had been working in San Francisco under several different names since 1910, starting as a tenement reform organization after the 1906 earthquake. But of course, San Francisco is a very small portion of the urbanized region of the Bay Area, and we were thinking about how to tackle regional questions in a region where our regional governance institutions are very weak. We have some very important single-purpose regional agencies, but we don't have a strong regional land use authority or general purpose government. All of the land use decisions are made at the local level, and that is enshrined in the state constitution, which presents some very significant challenges if you're trying to manage issues and challenges that happen at a regional level. Growth, job markets, housing markets, transportation systems, environmental impacts, open space systems, all those things cross jurisdictional boundaries. But all the land use authority is located at the local level. So the approach that we settled on was to look at these questions, these regional challenges, through the lens of the Bay Area's 3 center cities, to work at the local level around the region, and maintain our involvement in regional issues and regional institutions, but also broaden our local work to cities other than the bizarre hothouse of San Francisco, which has its own political landscape and its own physical landscape and its own set of challenges. So in 2009, we opened an office in San Jose, and just last year in Oakland. And it's been fascinating to learn to work in a different context with a different set of issues, as well as to have the three cities sort of be in conversation with one another, and to kind of be at the center of that conversation is really broadening for us as an organization, and we hope useful to the region. So that's a little bit of background on Spur. I am a city planner and urban designer by training. My undergraduate degree is in environmental studies, so in a way this project and this day is really kind of coming home for me. Really, sustainability and environmental issues are at the heart of why I do what I do. But as you'll see, I'm coming at it from an urban point of view. And only recently have reconnected with the kind of traditional conservation lens through my work at Ocean Beach, which I'll talk more about. So to the gross generalizations about cities, and every one of these is full of complexities and contradictions, but I think they're still very important insights. So urban dwellers emit a fraction of the carbon of their suburban counterparts. I think most people are familiar with this basic argument in terms of vehicle miles traveled, in terms of the energy footprint of buildings, transportation, etc. It's simply a much more efficient way to live. Cities are a critical piece of the technology that will allow us to not destroy our planet as completely as we might otherwise do. We all know that we are not doing a very good job of tackling this. Things are looking ever so slightly better in the last couple of years on the global scale, but very, very challenging and very, very worrisome. Cities are part of the answer, and cities need to be part of the answer whether they, regardless of their sort of intrinsic benefits in terms of efficiencies and density. The trend globally is for people to be living in cities anyway, so we have to figure out how to make cities work, but fortunately they also present some tremendous benefits in terms of living efficiently, living lightly, etc. Cities are also the places where climate change is going to be felt the most acutely. A huge percentage of the world lives in low-lying coastal areas, including the one we're in right now. That's a picture of the Embarcadero right here in San Francisco during a king tide. So as you'll see both here and at Ocean Beach, the effects of climate change and sea level rise are not someday problems. They are happening right now, and I know that you're all familiar with this in your own work, seeing a lot of emerging science about the effects of climate change today. But in terms of where climate change will be felt most acutely by people, and the solutions that we need to come up with, cities are both a key part of the solution and also the most vulnerable and the places where we will need to develop the ability to adapt. And those tools are very much in their infancy, but it's been a very exciting time to work in the emerging field of climate adaptation, which, although at some level is kind of basically depressing, right? You're sort of, you could think of it as throwing in the towel, but it's really about the changes that we've already locked into the climate system and figuring out how we're going to live with them, but also figuring out how we're going to use them as opportunities to make our cities better, to make our communities better, to make our lives better. And meanwhile, not at all throwing in the towel on the mitigation side, which is critically important, in itself, but also in how extreme the changes are that we're going to have to adapt to. One of the reasons cities are so efficient and important, and I believe at some very deep level, they have a powerful civic element to them. I mean, obviously the word is from the same root, but fundamental to why cities work so well in terms of the efficiency of our footprint is that in cities, public goods replace private goods. If you imagine a typical suburban environment, you have your yard, you have your car, you might even live on a private street. The footprint of our basic resources are internalized into each individual or each individual household. In a city, those goods are replaced by public goods. So instead of a car, we can use public transportation. Instead of a yard, we can use a public park.